2, 3. Hey. It's your boy Jayhardcore, Hardcoreboxing News. I'm here with my man, Showtime Shawn Porter. How you doing today?
I'm hanging in there, Jay, man. How about you?
Man, I'm keeping life simple, man. I'm just keeping life simple, and I really appreciate you being a man of your word. You told me when I'm ready that you were going to be my first guy, and I appreciate
Yes,
that,
sir.
man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm happy to do this right now.
Thank you very much. Well, I tell you what, let's just jump on in there. I think my first question I want to ask you, Shawn, is what made you get into boxing?
I love that question because it's probably the most simple answer that I may have in my life.
Okay.
um, my dad. I mean, just as simple as that. Just being a kid. Probably before I even started elementary school, my dad had been involved with boxing literally my entire life. And so when I was a little kid, and my brothers, when we were all little, my dad had a rule. And when we would go to the gym, the rule was we weren't allowed to sit down. And so my dad had this genius idea of showing myself and my brothers the fundamentals of boxing. And I don't think he necessarily knew what he wanted to do at that point in time. He just didn't want us to be kids at the boxing gym with a bunch of grown men sitting there eating and playing around. And so he cut out all of the horseplay and said, get in the mirror and here's your basics and fundamentals of boxing. And I remember when I was 8 years old, Christmas came around and he bought us gloves, he bought us boxing shoes, he bought us the tank tops and the robe and the shorts, the whole nine, and was like, we about to go get your boxing book so you can start boxing. So
Wow.
it's I mean that's the long story short, as short as possible. And to keep it as simple as possible, it was something my dad wanted us to do, and I understood at some point that, hey, this can take me everywhere I want to be in life. And sure enough, it's done all of that and more.
Did you want to box?
Um, as a kid, it was like want is really wasn't like in my vocabulary as a kid. It
Okay.
was it was just more so do this, do that. That was parenting at home, was just do this, do that, and you don't ask any questions. So I remember being a kid and he said, we're gonna go get your boxing book. And it was like, well, what's a boxing book? All of the questions that I understand now, I didn't even understand certain questions back then. And so there wasn't the question of do you want to box? It was just this is what you're gonna do. And I remember as a kid telling my mom when I was probably about 10 or 11 years old that I didn't want to box. And she said, tell your dad. I told my dad, and he asked why, the infamous why. Why don't you want to box? And I didn't really have an explanation. And he said, if you can't tell me why you don't want to box, then you have to do it. You can't just quit something without a reason for wanting to quit. And that's probably the only time I look back and at not trying to box. After that moment, everything was just straight ahead.
Wow. And you played football too, though, right? From what I
Mm-hmm.
understand.
Mm-hmm. Now, as a grown man, I know why I didn't want to box.
Okay.
I lived with my mom, and when I was a kid, I lived with my mom, and my dad brought up a heavy bag and he put it up in the garage, and he gave us uh this little trail to run around the block, this little jog to run around the block. And he said do this every day. And I loved football wholeheartedly. Nothing else mattered to me in life. It was do the homework before you get home so that when you get home, change clothes and go right down the street and play football. I was just trying to play backyard football with friends. And my dad was always saying, hit the bag. Why did you hit the bag? Why didn't you hit the bag today? It was like, as a kid, I understand how to express that's boring. I want to do this, And so, man, football was really literally was my life. I think boxing was just what we grew up doing and what we knew to do, but boxing was what I always, or football was what I always wanted to do.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
buddy.
Wow. Okay. Eh,
Yeah.
that's good to know, man.
It is because when you see or when you saw Showtime Shawn Porter in the ring, a lot of people thought that you were seeing a boxer in the ring. You were actually seeing an athlete in the ring. And there's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between being a basketball player and being an athlete. The athlete may not go as far as the basketball player can go. The basketball player may not have the highlight reels that the athlete could have, you know. And the same thing in the boxing world. You'll have a boxer that has all the intangibles to do one thing, and this is what I do great. And if you can't stop it, then I'll be undefeated. And I was kind of the I was separated me was I was an athlete. I could do so many different things in the fight, and I think that that's what people started to really appreciate about me at the end of my career was that you really didn't know which Shawn Porter you were going to get that night. Was it going to be the counter puncher? Was it going to be the aggressor? Was it going to be the boxer from the outside? And the list goes on. And you didn't know which athlete was coming to the ring that night.
Okay, okay. So now we see where a lot of that aggression came from. You know, everybody say Shawn Porter's like a football player in the
Yeah.
ring.
Yeah. I think the aggression, honestly, the aggression was just intelligence of me knowing that this is what I have to do. You know, knowing that a lot of fighters couldn't withstand the pressure, knowing that a lot of fighters would fold, and definitely a sense of what's the word I'm looking for? Uh Intimidation as well, you know.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay, cool, cool. So then we went to the amateurs, and in the amateurs, what weight class was you in your ladder? You were
Yeah, I mean, I did, and I think it's funny when so the story is out that I play football, and
mhm.
I run into a lot of people that think that I went from playing football to boxing, don't understand that I boxed and played football my entire life, and so I started boxing when I was 8 years old, 65 pounds, I think, and a lot of
Mhm.
people don't realize that, but I climbed the ladder, did everything that was needed to be done. I won championships at 70 pounds, 80 pounds, 90 pounds, 100 pounds, 125 pounds. But I'm notoriously known for fighting in the men's division at 165 pounds, which is way north of 147. And if and you could imagine the height and reach that a lot of guys had on
Had it.
me,
Yeah.
and it never really mattered, and they didn't understand that they couldn't outbox an athlete, they couldn't outpunch an athlete, they couldn't be stronger than the athlete. I just was, even though there was this size differential, I
Differential.
still always offset it with some form of technique and athleticism. And the most notorious name I'm known for fighting out there is
Usyk.
Alexander Usyk.
Yeah.
And I like to tell people, like, he was not as tall as he is now, but just about. He was over 6 feet. Um,
Wow.
but he was definitely thinner and not as strong and as big as he is now, you know. But I think you get fixated on he's 147 and he's 201 plus, but if you can wrap your heads around, both of these guys were young men at one point in time, and even though there's this big height differential, they were the exact same weight, and they got it on, and it actually was an exciting, fun fight. Yeah,
You won that fight too.
yeah, I won that fight, hands down, man. It was a unanimous decision. We were fighting on the point scoring system back in the
Yeah.
day with
Yeah.
computers, and excuse me, and it was a good fight, man. It's funny in the moment. It happened. It was what it was. And then once Alexander fought in the Olympic Games at heavyweight, my dad said, "Look at who's fighting at heavyweight." And I said, "I don't know who that is." He said, "Remember, you fought him back in '07. He represented the Ukraine in the 2012 games at
Hmm.
heavy." And I was just like, whoa, like that kid got that guy got big, you know.
Blew up, right? Yeah.
He stuck around in the amateurs, and some guys just do that, you know. And I think that it proved to be very beneficial for him, you know. He grew, he got bigger, got into a weight class that he could really make some big noise at, you know. I never had a second thought about him, you know, until he goes on and starts to really make some noise. And it's like wow, like I remember that guy. No, would not dare get in the ring with him now, but I definitely remember that night, you know. So
Wow. Yeah,
definitely
look,
has some good memories.
he became undisputed in the cruiserweight and
Yeah,
actually got a chance to do it again in the heavyweight division if him and Fury get it on.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's what makes boxing really, really special. It's there's this separation from every other sport, you know. You can't make, I don't know how to really to equate it, but I think, again, to have two fighters at one point in time be the same size and do something that nobody knew was done. I mean, we fought in Chicago, you know. Nobody knew that Ukraine came to Chicago in '07 unless you were on that team, or unless you were, you know, close to Chicago and you cared about boxing. You know, nobody knew that little old Ukraine was going to be fighting in little old Chicago, and little old Shawn Porter would be fighting big old Alexander Usyk. But it's special because you fast forward so many years later, and even though we're in two different sizes and weight divisions, we both have had made these humongous explosions in the sport that we love, you know. And it's that, I think that that's what makes it special, you know.
Yeah, y'all both end up being world champions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it ain't too many guys you can say that about, you know.
No, not at all, man.
I give you another story that not too many people know about. Did you know that Danny Garcia and Terrence Crawford fought in the 2007 Olympic Games?
I
Olympic
know
trials,
that
excuse me.
yes, I did know that they fought, and matter of fact, they fought twice. Danny won once and Bud won once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know who beat Bud, but Bud beat Danny, and then Danny beat Bud in the second fight.
And Bud fought Ugas too. Did you know that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Ugas.
Ugas.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ugas.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah, Ugas. Yeah.
I was there.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's another crazy story. Just to show, like, tell people how electrifying Terrence Crawford has always been.
Mm-hmm.
This was back in the day when we were fighting on that point system.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Pooh Bear. Thank you, Pooh Bear. My son and my wife brought me lunch.
Nice tuna, huh?
Yeah.
Looks good.
Dang.
You like, dang, I can't eat right now.
Yeah. And but we were fighting on the point system, and and US is we're known for not being giving the fair shake in international competition. Terrence Crawford, this was before he fought Ugas. Terrence Crawford's fighting some country, I don't know what country it was, and hits the dude, knocks the dude out. Dude is out cold on the canvas, and he didn't even get the point that he for that punch that he landed. That's how kind of that's just how boxing goes for Americans, or how it went for Americans back then when we were in the amateur program. You
How
know?
did they justify that?
They didn't. The only thing you justify is that kid can't get up, so Bud moves on to the next day.
Wow.
But imagine how many punches what we would land in these international competitions that we wouldn't even get credit for. Wow. So I'm only saying that to say this: when you fast forward and he fights Ugas, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really remember how that fight went, but whatever the points looked like or whatever they said the fight was, if he knocked that dude out and didn't get the point, imagine how many points he landed. He scored.
I get your drift now, yeah.
Because
Ugas did win that fight against Bud.
Yeah, And a lot of people will read into that.
Yeah, but
And
don't really know if all the points were being actually scored. Okay.
exactly. But out of that whole little story that I just told, one thing you do know is that even back then, Terence Crawford was electrifying, had power.
Wow.
So imagine who he is now as a grown man. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Okay.
I think that a lot of times he doesn't get the respect that he deserves, but people, you got to know his entire story. If you know Bud Crawford's entire story, you got the utmost respect for him.
I'm gonna tell you the favorite story that I like that your father tells is when Bud squared up on him in the alley. I love that story.
Bud has always been, you know, hard headed, hot headed, you know, the whole nine. And my
and
dad
mean.
was
And
my dad
mean.
was like on the international duels, very mean. But yeah, on the international teams, my dad was always the police. Whenever something was going down, they called my dad because they know my dad was gonna straighten it out, was gonna hem up whoever needed to be hemmed up and get everything the way it needed to be. And this time it was Terrence. And Terrence was the kind of guy when that particular situation happened, it was like how do I it's it's like fire and ain't nobody coming close to the fire. That's how he was. After that commotion had erupted, now everybody's like standing around the fire of Terrence Crawford because they know if anybody approaches, if anybody does or says anything, he might fire up and go off on whoever approaches him. And so my dad was the one who was, for the sake of words, coined with escorting him out of the gym. And he basically told my dad, like, I don't need nobody to help me out. I'm leaving on my own. My dad ain't used to being talked to like that. So I think honestly, my dad was chasing after respect. My dad wasn't chasing after making sure nothing happened to Terrence or making sure that nothing happened along the way to anybody else. I think my dad at that point in time was chasing after Terrence because he was chasing the respect that he felt that Terrence should have gave him at that point in time. And my dad says it was a back alley, not a back alley, but definitely a pathway to the rooms. And you know, I can only imagine, you know, Terrence just turned around, fired up, tears in his eyes, and you know, fist balled up because that's just who he is. And it wasn't from Terrence. I really don't think it was I'm a swing on you. It's just he was mad, and that's his protective mechanism, his fight, you know. And my dad says, I looked at this kid, and he says, I knew that one of us wasn't gonna be walking out of that back alley.
Right.
And you know, my dad was much younger back then, so I know my dad's mind, he was like, it ain't gonna be me. I ain't gonna be the one not walking back, you know. And so my dad knew that, you know what, I'm gonna let you simmer down, you know. And I think that in that point in time, it get funny, and you know, you answer a lot when you speak out loud. And the one thing that I'm realizing right now is that my dad may have been chasing respect and he found respect, but it wasn't respect he was chasing. He
Right.
found respect for Terrence Crawford because of who he was what he was standing in that moment, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is a beautiful thing if you understand it.
Yeah, no doubt. Life is
Mm.
definitely beautiful. Okay. What is Shawn Porter's favorite fight?
Um, I would say two favorite fights. Number one might
Oh,
be Errol Spence.
okay.
Great fight, man. Beginning to end. I remember my emotions and my feelings leading up to the fight, man. I just was like, I was firing on this level that, you know, not many a lot of people hope to reach and never get there. You know what I mean? I was definitely on a different level and just full of excitement coming to the ring that night. I'll never forget that I was like genuinely excited to fight, you know. And you know, we all know how that fight went. And I think that if anything, my excitement showed through the entire fight in one way or another, you know. And Danny Garcia. The reason why with that fight is because for me, that was the first time we had game plan for a specific fight from rounds 1 through rounds 12.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that bad boy went exactly how it was supposed to go.
Mm.
And I told somebody the other day, I said, man, I saw this highlight of my fight with Danny Garcia, and I ate 3 punches right in a row. I said, I don't even remember that moment happening.
Wow.
I said, it took me seeing that for me to realize that it had happened.
Mm-hmm.
I said, with as perfect as that fight was, I said, there were definitely things that weren't written in the script that happened, like
Mm-hmm.
me getting punched 3 times in a row. That's not supposed to happen. I said, but that's the beautiful part about boxing, when you can make it through moments like that and still stay on task and still stay with your game plan and do what the instruction is and carry that all out, man. That's what leads to a beautiful night that you'll never forget, you know.
Yeah, my favorite fight for you was also Earl Spence fight.
Yeah,
Shawn, I believe if you don't get knocked down, you win that fight.
I do too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I truly believe. I could have even took a draw
yeah,
or Spence by 1 point.
yeah,
But if you don't get knocked down,
yeah.
that's your fight to win.
I don't remember exactly how we were scoring the fight in the corner. I remember early in the fight, my dad felt comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember at what point he was like, he said something along the lines of, it's close, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Uh that might have been like maybe around round 9, round 8, round 9,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. I remember the whole corner. We felt comfortable, confident that we were running the fight. And I do
Mm-hmm.
remember that there was one round near this on the second half of the fight that my dad thought I lost. And I
Mm-hmm.
came back. He said, I don't think you got that round, and I think that this is a close fight. He said, you're gonna have to keep it up, you're gonna have to do this, you can do that, da 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 da. And then once the knockdown happens, it's not that my dad averted everything, but he said, listen, he said, at this point, you need to protect yourself. You need to make sure that you don't take any more heavy shots like you just took. He
Mm-hmm.
said, I want you to win this fight, but I want you to go home healthy. He said, so keep your hands up and be responsible defensively.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one more hard push in that 12th round could have really,
Pushed it
brought
over.
that back to a draw, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. But overall, man, again, you talk about game planning, you talk about preparation, you talk about execution, and you talk about adversity and fighting through adversity. That fight is like a movie fight right there. That's
Yeah.
one that I
That
think
was
you
a
can make.
Rocky movie. That was a Rocky
Yeah, I
movie.
think you
Yeah.
can make a movie out of that
Yeah.
fight.
I I've seen majority of all your fights, and that was the best Shawn Porter I seen. That was, to me,
Agreed.
that was the best Shawn Porter I
Agreed.
seen. I mean, and I've always been a Spence guy as well. You know what I mean? But that night, man, that's them the type of fights you don't forget about. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
is a classic. You know what I mean? And I always watch it at least twice a year. You know what I mean? So
and 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 ultimately, we can talk all up and down about my career, how I started boxing
mhm,
and why I boxed, and the list goes on.
mhm,
And what would come out of my mouth consistently is my dad, my dad, my dad.
mhm,
He was the force, he was the brains, he was everything in terms of me becoming a boxer and doing what I did in the boxing ring. But one thing about me
mhm,
specifically was that I always wanted to have a night or nights to remember.
mhm.
And I do believe that I've had the opportunity to perform and create a few nights that won't go away for a very long time. And that's what to me makes everything that I did in the ring and in the gym and all that kind of stuff. That's what makes it all worth it for me.
Well, one thing about a Shawn Porter fight, we always knew it was going to be excitement. Well, I remember,
Yeah.
boy, I was at the fight in DC, and poor Paulie Maggiani. You mauled him down that night, man. I mean, nobody did Paulie like how you did Paulie. You know, we call it you did him dirty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you did him dirty, man. You manhandled him for sure. Nobody did Paulie like that but you.
I tell you real quick. So when we started making that journey down to 147
Mm-hmm.
from upwards to
160,
160,
65, yeah.
from upwards to 160,
Mm-hmm.
the concern was power. The concern was losing muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have been cutting it and making it happen for probably 2 years, 3 years maybe before I got in the ring with Paulie. And what I personally would do the morning of a weigh-in was I'd be in the mirror like how's the muscle definition look? How does it
Right,
look?
right. Mm-hmm.
Because I was just always worried and concerned.
Mm-hmm.
People don't know this about me, but I was kind of a knockout artist in the amateurs at 165 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm knocking down giants.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hurting giants. But that was who I was as a fighter. But as we started to cut the weight, we could see that the muscle, we was kind of getting into the muscle a little bit, so on and so forth. And when I got to the weigh-in for Paulie,
Mm-hmm.
we had just switched up our routine for managing the weight in terms of how we cut the weight the week of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And the night of the fight, I was getting dressed, putting on my oil and stuff like that. And I looked at my legs, and my legs looked thicker than they had looked in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Looking down at my legs, I looked up at my dad right next to me. I said, Dad, look. He looks down. He said, what? I said, look at my legs. He said, yeah, your legs look good. I said, I got all my legs. He said, yeah, look like it. I said, look, I said, he in trouble. And my dad said, yeah, he in trouble. And that moment was like mentally, it's like something just snapped and clicked. I took that to the ring and went after that man like he was
he stole something.
Like he was food.
Mm-hmm.
And then you fast forward, because I got that knockout that I've been used to getting since I was in the amateurs.
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh, I'm back, baby. Oh, I'm back, baby. You fast forward, the very next fight is Kell Brooks.
Kell Brooks, yeah.
And for 12 rounds, I go at Kell the exact same way I went at Paulie. You can't, he's a different animal from Paulie.
Yeah,
but
and he clinched a lot too.
But in my mind, I'm who I used to be. Nobody can stand up to me. Mm-hmm. I got on smaller gloves now. There's no headgear now. And I just was on this confidence high, and this high from getting in the ring and doing what I did to Paulie, that I just knew it was going to work with Kell. Losing to Kell ended up being a blessing, because it allowed me to realize that even though I'm confident, even though I know what I can do, I still got to rely on game plan. I still got to rely on technique. I still got to rely on adjustments that need to be made. And I still have to be a complete fighter. I can't just be this attacker mauling guys and getting them out of there. Mm-hmm. And that's when you see like this maturity, the maturation of my career. Actually, it started right there with Kell. That's where it started.
I had a question about that too. Why was there never a rematch with you and Kell?
Because that's boxing.
So it wasn't no rematch clause, because you were the champion at the time.
Let's see that right there. People always screaming about a rematch clause. Mm-hmm. That's not, it's not always realistic.
Okay.
It takes the people who are working the business, it takes them doing the right thing. And they're not gonna always say, yeah, we're gonna initiate a rematch clause for this fight or in this contract. My dad and I were still both very young, and from the business standpoint, in boxing. And when I don't remember what was said about a rematch before the fight, but definitely maybe a day or two after the fight, my dad knew we weren't going to get a rematch.
Oh, he knew then, huh?
Yeah, but everybody assumes that when there's a belt on the line, that the champion is always going to have a rematch, automatic rematch clause and things like that.
Especially not with Top Rank, because Bob Arum, he definitely ain't into rematches. That's
It
one thing.
has to be. It's an addendum in the contract, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's the business that needs to be worked out before the fight happens. And sometimes, and people don't know this. You bring that addendum like, hey, we're gonna fight, but this isn't in the contract. We need this in the contract.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody drags their feet one night or a couple hours, you don't have that opportunity to get the addendum in the contract.
Mm-hmm.
You put up a little fuss and they may throw a little money at you. I mean, there's so many different scenarios that can go on in the sport of boxing that doesn't go on in any other sport, because every other sport has rules, regulations that are for the sake of words airtight, and there's no going around it. With boxing, that term that you just used right there, rematch clause, we would all assume that it's in every contract, should probably be in every contract,
especially for a champion. Yeah, because anybody can have a bad night.
Yeah, but if you know what's bigger on the horizon, then you don't necessarily want that rematch, you know.
True that, because it might mess you up for some money.
Might mess you up for some money.
Okay.
No.
All right. Who was your hardest fight?
That first man we just talked about. It's got to be between Errol and Terrence.
Okay. Okay.
I think at some point you get to a point where you're just you're at the top. And at the top, everybody is your hardest fight, you know?
What made his fight with you the hardest? What was it about him that made it a hard fight?
Errol is probably I'm one very impressive thing about Errol is his consistency.
Okay.
He doesn't really waver from what he does well, pretty much at all. And if he faces adversity in a round or in the moment, he doesn't fold to it. A lot of fighters fold to that adversity. His consistency and his success, I think, is what has given him faith in his consistency. And that's what makes him such a dangerous fighter, you know. And so just every single round was hard. Every single round you had to be on your game.
Oh, okay.
You know, and obviously we know that moment in my fight with Errol where it was a small mistake that he capitalized on because of his consistency, you know.
Okay.
And then with Terrence is probably the only fighter, and this includes Errol, because I saw it in Errol, where Errol got a little bothered at one point in the ring with me. Didn't waver from what he does, but he acknowledged that he was a little bothered by what was happening in the ring. Terrence never wavered either. Terrence stays very consistent at what he does. Probably the most confident fighter I've ever been in the ring with. Yeah. Yeah, probably the most confident fighter I've ever been in the ring with.
He is very confident.
Yeah.
But he has right to be that confident.
Absolutely. Yeah. And never gave me a sense of discomfort. And you know, and I pride myself on not allowing guys to be comfortable. You know?
You don't let nobody be comfortable, Shawn.
I never say never. I never saw him in a moment of discomfort.
Wow.
And
so,
that's what
even if he had a good poker face.
And that's what makes you great.
Yeah. Okay. The hardest punch ever received from a fighter. Who was it?
I love it because you don't feel much in the ring. You feel the body shots. You may get hit on the shoulder, stuff like that. But a lot of what happens in the ring is probably between the adrenaline and and the focus. You don't feel much, you know.
I heard that a lot from fighters too.
Yeah, for you to say, man, that dude hit hard, man. Me personally, I can't say that. But I have heard other fighters say that, you know, they've been in the ring with some really heavy hitters.
A lot of people say Danny Garcia he's a slugger.
Yeah, I don't remember, or not that I don't remember, but I just didn't feel a lot of it, you know. I told you, like, there was a point where I got hit with 3 punches in a row.
Yeah, you say you don't even remember them happening.
It took me looking at it for me to see it, because I know that I was just so locked in and probably got hit 3 times. and was mentally like, all right, that needs to be adjusted, and just kept going. It's going so fast. I don't have time to think about what I just got hit with.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I don't got time to sit in being mad that I got 3 times.
Okay.
That's for a highlight reel for me to look at later and be mad at myself. You know what I mean?
Right,
But in the
right.
moment, man, everything is moving so fast and you so focused and locked in, you don't feel much.
Okay, cool, cool. I got a good one for you. Past or present, if Shawn Porter could fight just one person in the past or in the present, who would that be?
It has to be Timothy Bradley, man.
Really?
It has to be.
Y'all didn't fight.
And as you can see, I'm full of stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna make these extremely quick.
Okay.
I saw Timothy Bradley fight and beat Devin Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
Devin, I think he complained about a cut in the eye or something like that, and the fight got stopped, and Tim won the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And on camera, as they panned it to Tim, or before they even get to Tim's face, you just hear on it, you hear the audio, where my belt's at? Bring me my belt. Bring me my belt. Where my belt at? Bring me my belt. And I was just thinking to myself, I was watching on TV, I was just thinking to myself, like, dang, like this dude is like that. He mean. And so I developed a sense of respect, appreciation, and I had this, like, I had this, I admired him, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Then when he fights, was it Sergey Lipnitz? No, it was the other Russian fighter. What's his name? Provatnikov. When he
Oh
fought
man,
Provatnikov,
that was a terrible fight.
I
Woo!
watched that entire fight, and I was, of course, rooting for Tim.
Mm-hmm.
I was worried for Tim. I was mad at Tim because I thought that he should have fought a different style. I was confused because I was like, why is he doing that? And I remember thinking to myself, seeing what he had went through, that fight is happening, and like as the fight ends, I sat back and I thought to myself, that's the benchmark right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the definition of fighting hard. If you don't fight hard like that, you're not fighting hard. And I accepted what Tim did, and I said, I ain't gonna take that many punches, but I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna go through whatever I got to go through the way that he just did it. If he can do it, I can do it. And so it's like this admiration that I've always had for Tim. And so when people ask if you could fight anybody, who would it be? I feel like Tim wasn't the most athletic. Tim wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the quickest and all that. But to a degree, Tim to me is like the ceiling in terms of greatness. There's something about Tim that I hold him at a ceiling of greatness, and that's why I would want to get in the ring with him. Basically,
Nice.
just to me, that's like the ultimate test.
Okay. Maybe y'all do that one day.
We won't.
Y'all won't.
We talked about it. He said, "Hey, yeah." I said, "Yeah, me neither."
I remember that fight against Probanov, and I remember what Tim said in an interview one time. He said it took about 6 months for him to get right. He said he couldn't even speak correctly anymore. He said that fight took a lot out of him. And
when people hear, again, like my respect for the game is on another level. My respect for fighters is on another level. You hear a lot of fighters say, yeah, well, I respect them. They putting on 2 gloves too, and they doing this, they doing that. Nah, my respect for other fighters is because I truly understand we're all different, but at some capacity we're all the same, And so I just my respect for fighters is like it's different. Like, people saw me, the towel was thrown in against Terrence Crawford, and so you would expect me to have this animosity towards Terrence, but I admire him. I know him outside the ring, so I know I know exactly who Terrence is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the admiration for him is very, very long, you know. But just to go back to Tim real quick, a lot of people see Tim on TV and they don't understand Tim. They think that Tim isn't fair sometimes. They think that Tim says things that he shouldn't say. Tim went through it all. And when you've gone through it all,
Mm-hmm.
you understand that it doesn't matter what you think about me or what
Mm-hmm.
you're going to say about me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say what I feel because I've gone through it and I know who I am. I know what I'm seeing and I know what I know. And so Tim has this he has this personality about him, and I think that it gets misunderstood because Tim is extremely knowledgeable in the sport of boxing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm surprised he's not coaching anybody. And I don't know if I think that he's gonna coach one day.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk about a guy that couldn't remember things for 6 months, couldn't remember
Yeah.
one night for
Yes.
6 months, and started and went through a sense of depression and all these things to come all the way back to, in order for me to remember, in order for me to be healthy, I just got to work on it. And that's what Tim has done. Tim simply worked on everything, got himself back healthy to a place of happiness. And I think that now he's in a space where he's like, I've been through it all. I know what I know, and I'm gonna say it. You know, and a lot of people don't understand that, you know, he himself has gone through a lot. And when you've gone through a lot, it kind of gives you this sense that it don't matter what you think about me. I'm gonna say it, you know. And so I respect it, man. I love that boy Tim, man. He the
That's
best.
what's up. That's what's up. That's all right. Okay, shifting gears a little bit. The state of boxing. What would Shawn change in the state of boxing? You've been through it all. You done seen it. You've seen everything.
Yeah.
What would you change in boxing?
Everybody wants to see the best fight the best,
Yeah.
you know. Um, if I could change anything in boxing, excuse me, if I could change anything in boxing, I would change the business, the uh the business model, you
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm.
I would force these promotional entities to work together, you know. With as small as this sport is, especially compared to all of the rest of the sports,
Mm-hmm.
we truly cannot afford to have these cold wars. Yet they happen and they have happened. That
Yes.
I would change that whole cold war mentality. That's got to go.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
100%. You
Go.
know, because it's a disservice. We're not getting a chance to see people at their prime fight each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we don't even know if we're going to get Spence and Crawford. We don't know. We
Yeah.
hopefully that we do, you know, and if we don't get it this year, we're not getting it. I don't think, you know, who will even want it after this year? You know what I mean? Because, you know, they're getting older, you know. All right. Well,
Yeah.
listen here, we a little bit time left. I'm gonna get you pick your mind on a couple of fights that's coming up. First one, Plant Benavidez. What's
Love it.
Sean think? Hmm?
I love it.
Who
I hate picking
wins?
a winner.
I know you hate
I
picking
hate picking
winners.
a winner. Um, I think I think Caleb outboxes David.
Okay, cool, cool. Next, that
I
was easy.
I think it's gonna be exciting enough for a rematch.
Okay,
And I think that rematch will be more suspenseful than the first fight.
bad. Fury and Usyk. You've been in there with Usyk. So what do you think about that fight?
I don't know, man. I think that that one is super interesting because you got a big man
Mm-hmm.
in Tyson Fury who's so much faster than everybody else, but he still doesn't have this like crazy high work rate.
Mm-hmm.
And at his age, I'm wondering if he's going to be able to make an adjustment in training to get ready for the work rate that Usyk is going to bring. I would pick Tyson Fury to win that fight, but I'm very curious to see if the work rate that Usyk brings and the speed that Usyk brings is just too much for 12 rounds.
Okay. All right. I got a good one for you. Scooter, Stephen Fulton against Inoue.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the one right there.
Yes. In Japan, though.
It's in Japan? Is it happening
Yeah.
in Japan?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's the only problem right there.
Why you say problem?
I don't know if he get a fair shake.
Yeah. It's a great fight. That's a great fight. That boy, Stephen Fulton. He ain't no one trick pony, man.
Nope.
He literally, one of the few fighters out there that can fight the style and have the right technique against whoever it is he's in the ring with. He I gotta rock with Stephen Fulton, but I ain't sleeping on anyway.
No, you can't sleep on him, but he is coming up in weight, though.
Yeah,
he's coming up, so
I
Fulton's going to be the bigger man.
I could be wrong, but I don't think that there's a separation, much separation in 22 to 26 in terms of like power, size.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I don't think that there is.
Yeah, I don't think Inoue has seen anything like Fulton before.
Yeah, so like I think that there's a difference between 22 to 30. I don't think there's much difference between 22 to 26.
I was talking to Bozy yesterday, and he said he wouldn't be surprised as Fulton stops Inoue. Yeah.
What is I don't. Yeah, that's a great fight, man.
All right. Last one would be Tank and Ryan Garcia.
I think 8 times out of 10, Tank wins that fight.
Okay. All right. 8 out of 10. Nice.
I think that Ryan is special, and I think that he has special moments in the ring. And I wonder if a guy like Tank, if a moment would present itself for Ryan. Ryan is very special. But his I think that he's a fighter that fights off of instinct and moments. He's been able to capitalize on moments. I don't know if Tank could ever present a moment for him.
Okay. All right. My last question, Shawn. How's it being a media guy?
Loving it, man. We haven't made it public yet, but I'll be going over to Saudi next week to do some commentating ringside. That's what I love most. So I'm really, really looking forward to next week.
Okay. So that's for the what you call him fight?
Jake Paul, Tommy Fury.
Yeah. And I got Casey Moose, and he's fighting that night.
Okay.
Yeah, the Muslim boxer. So yeah. So that's going to be a good night.
Yes,
all right,
sir.
Well, Shawn, I appreciate you, man.
You got it, my man.
You know what? I did have one more question. Tell us something that we don't know about Shawn Porter.
I'm an evangelist.
Okay.
Just realize that. I've been a Christian my entire life.
That's your middle name.
And it's my
So you've been a Christian your whole life.
Been a Christian my whole life, practically literally since birth.
Yes.
But yeah, man, as I've gotten older, gotten closer to God, learned more, matured as a Christian. Word came across my my desk just a couple of days ago on Monday, and the word is evangelism. And excuse me, I am I'm going to be writing a 5-minute sermon just for church, just for our men's night on
Mm-hmm.
evangelism. And when I got this word, I looked at it, I said, wait a minute, I'm an evangelist.
Yeah.
So if anybody doesn't know, I'll try to show real quick. Like right here, I have scriptures on my collars,
Mm-hmm.
on all the collars of my
Shirts.
wardrobe.
Okay.
And I try to represent God wherever I go, you know, and so I never really realized that I'm an evangelist. I do a motivational message at the end of every Porter Way podcast episode.
Mm-hmm.
And even though those aren't messages direct to Christianity, a lot of my wisdom, a lot of my knowledge, a lot of my worldly experience, confidence, the motivation that I give, the experience that I give, the inspiration that I give, it all comes from what I know as being a Christian, you know. So just this week realizing that, wow, like I am an evangelist. I am living in my purpose, what God has me on earth for. So I know a lot of people know that I'm a Christian. I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people know that I have faith in God and things like that, but definitely would love for people to start to look at me and understand that you know, he is definitely set apart and he is doing God's work wherever he goes.
Nice, 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 nice. Well, listen
Yes,
there,
sir.
Shawn. It was truly been a pleasure. We learned a lot of stuff that we didn't know about Shawn Porter today.
Yeah.
All right, well, this is Jayhardcore, Hardcore Boxing News, and Showtime Shawn Porter, and we out of here.
Take care, Jay.
I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
And make sure
Hallelujah.
y'all check out the Porter Way podcast.
The
You
Porter Way
got it.
Podcast, YouTube, all of the podcasting platforms. We really big on TikTok right now and Instagram as well. The Porter Way Podcast.
That's right. Now we out of here for real this time. You take it easy, Shawn.
Yes, sir. You too.
All right. Nice.